All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a really interesting question today. When it comes to being fast, to being powerful, what if the real problem isn't your muscles? What if the thing holding you back is actually your brain? I mean, it's a super common frustration for anyone who trains, right? You're putting in the work, you're getting stronger in the gym, but that explosive speed you're really chasing, it just isn't showing up. You feel like you've hit a plateau. So what is actually going on here? So here's the deal. On one side, you have what we all kind of assume. Get stronger, you'll get faster. Simple. But the science? Well, it tells a totally different story, one that's happening deep inside our nervous system. Turns out it's not just about how big your engine is, it's about how fast the signal is that tells that engine to go. Okay, so let's dig into that old way of thinking. Why isn't just getting stronger the magic bullet for speed that we all thought it was? There are some serious limits. It's a really easy assumption to make, isn't it? You see these incredibly powerful athletes, you see their muscles, and your brain just automatically connects those two things. We think that explosive force is just a direct result of how powerful our muscles are. And this is the exact question where that whole idea starts to fall apart. Think about it. You see it in sports all the time. You can have two athletes who lift the exact same amount, but one of them is just way quicker off the mark. If muscle strength was the only thing that mattered, that just wouldn't happen. Clearly, something else is going on. And that something else, that hidden ingredient, that's your nervous system. This is where the real secret to speed is hiding. It's not enough to have a souped-up engine. You need a world-class ignition system to make it fire on all cylinders. So let's see how this works. So to really get this, we gotta start with the basics. It all comes down to something called a motor unit. This is basically the final command line from your brain to your body. It's one single nerve cell, a neuron, that connects to a whole group of muscle fibers. When that neuron fires its signal, bam, those muscle fibers contract. It is the literal bridge between your thoughts and your actions. Which brings us to this term, neural drive. The best way to think about this is as the quality of that go signal. It's not just that a signal gets sent, but how strong and how fast that electrical pulse is. A really high-quality neural drive is like turning the volume up to 11. It gets more motor units to join the party and tells them to fire like crazy. So how much does this neural drive really matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, a really important study by Del Vecchio and his team came up with a number that should honestly change how we think about power. And that number is 71%. Just let that sink in for a second. What this means is that almost 3/4 of what makes one person more explosive than another has nothing to do with their muscles. It's all decided by the quality of the signal sent from their brain in the tiny little milliseconds before any movement even happens. It's all about that initial command. So the research really boiled it down to a few key things. First, how fast can you get your motor units working? Second, what's the absolute maximum speed your neurons can fire? And third, and this is the real kicker, it's the power of that signal in just the first 35 milliseconds that basically predicts how explosive you're going to be. That initial burst of information is everything. Okay, so that's planned movements, like a jump or a throw. But what about reacting to something, like a pitcher's fastball or a starting gun? Well, this is where we run into another speed limit, and this one is all about your brain's processing power. And this chart shows the problem perfectly. It's a classic demonstration of something called Hicks' law. Put simply, the more choices your brain has to consider, the longer it takes you to react. Why? Because your brain has more work to do before it can even send the signal to move. It's a fundamental traffic jam in your head. You can think of it like a 3-step pipeline. Step 1, your brain has to identify the stimulus. Okay, what was that? Step 2, it has to select the right response. All right, what am I going to do about it? And finally, step 3, it has to program that response, getting the actual motor command ready to send to the muscles. And here's the catch. That pipeline can only handle so much traffic at once. If you try to shove too much information through it, like making a complex decision under pressure, you get a cognitive traffic jam. Everything gets backed up and your reaction time slows way down. Your muscles might be ready to go, but they're stuck waiting for the brain to clear the roads. So we have the neural drive for power and this processing pipeline for reactions. But what about consistency? Why is your timing perfect 1 second and then just off the next? This brings us to the signal and the noise happening inside the system. This quote from a study on this very topic says it all, really. Neural latency determines behavioral latency. In plain English, that means the timing of your actual physical action is a direct mirror of the timing of your brain's internal signals. The inconsistencies we feel aren't random. They start inside the brain. And researchers have tracked this down to two main sources. Think of it like a band. First, you've got clock variability. This is your drummer, the brain's internal metronome just being a little bit offbeat with when it decides to send the signal. Then you have motor variability. This is like your guitarist having a delay in their equipment, a little lag in turning that signal into actual sound, or in our case, movement. The timing error can come from either place. So here is a really powerful way to think about this. That timing error, that moment of being out of sync, it isn't a mistake. It's not a failure on your part. It's just a natural feature of a biological computer, your brain, dealing with tiny, constant fluctuations. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay, we've gone deep into motor neurons and cognitive traffic jams. So let's pull it all together. What are the big takeaways? What does this actually mean for how we should train and perform? Honestly, this pretty much changes everything. It means that to get faster, we have to train our nervous system to be more efficient. It means that performing under pressure is really a test of your brain's processing speed, not just your physical skill. It means your reaction time will always be limited by how fast you can see something and decide what to do. And at the end of the day, getting better at a skill is really just about making that mental pipeline faster and more efficient. And that kind of leaves us with this one big, fascinating question. If we know that the real speed limit is neural, not muscular, what does that mean for how we're going to train athletes in the future? Are we going to see a shift away from just lifting heavy things and towards training our brains to think, to react, and to command our bodies faster than we ever thought possible? It really seems like the next frontier for human performance isn't in our muscles, but in our minds.